to another video episode of my podcast. My name is Cheryl, and this is Cappuccino Crafts, my little channel on YouTube and my corner of the general interwebs where I like to talk about knitting and sometimes crochet and TV and movies and books and life and other general chatty things that I want to share with you. Thank you so much for choosing to watch this video and spend a little bit of your time with me. I really hope that you enjoy it. Please get yourself a delicious beverage, settle in, and let's enjoy a lovely visit together. So today I am drinking some cold brew tea from the refrigerator. This is from Yogi tea. It is the stress relief blend, which has lavender and chamomile and honey, and it's really refreshing, and I am enjoying staying hydrated. I hope you're staying hydrated too. But yes, today is July 26th, another Monday. And I did not make a video last week. It just turned out that it was time for a break. And I just found myself, I didn't stop reading, and it was a fine week and I was feeling okay, but I just was still in the middle of the 3 books that I was reading. I hadn't finished one of them. I didn't have anything new to say that I hadn't already said when I first started reading the books. And I just didn't know what to talk about. And I just felt like, it's time for a break. I need this Monday off. So that's what I did, and thank you for understanding. Or I hope you understand. I guess I was assuming, but we shouldn't make assumptions. Anyway, so it's been 2 weeks then, and here, let me show you the front. Here we have my Etta tea. This is a design from the Barocco design team, and it was designed with this particular Barocco yarn called Summer Sesame. It is a summer yarn. It's got cotton and acrylic and a little bit of nylon. So the cotton makes it breathable and light, and it's a very good summer yarn to wear comfortably. You can see the body of the t-shirt is progressing. I have started some shaping to bring in the waist. So this does have a shaped body. It's not meant to be real boxy. So I am enjoying that. It is so relaxing to work on. And I finished my 3 big books that I was reading. 2 of them were for book clubs, and one of them, this one, my beautiful copy of Emma by Jane Austen. This is a read for Jane Austen July, which will soon be closing. And I finished it last night, and I already knew the story very well because I have watched the 1996 movie adaptation many times, and I've seen the 2020 adaptation a couple of times. I really enjoy the story of Emma and the characters in Highbury and the journey that Emma goes on in trying to, hopefully at the end of the book, she's a little bit of a better person and she's learned her lesson about not to interfere with other people and plan their lives for them. But yeah, this is just so funny. I just love Jane Austen's comedy of manners. Nobody does a comedy of manners the way that she does. And yeah, so that was really good. And the two other books that I have for book clubs, and one of them will be meeting on Zoom later today. And the book that I finished for the Zoom book club was Year One by Nora Roberts. And this was a pandemic apocalypse with fantasy. So a fantasy apocalypse. The survivors of the pandemic, some of them actually become magical, like fae and pixies and elves and witches and wizards. And yeah, and then there's all the typical apocalypse stuff, but with a side of epic fantasy. And there's the classic good versus evil struggle, and trying to build community again and try and do better than just survive, but try and rebuild what they can. And the beginning of that, this is a trilogy, so it is number one in a series, and it was a lot of fun. Once I got like 50% through, which didn't take me too long, because it's just her writing is so readable, and that's good. That's not a dig. That's not saying it's too simple or too like basic. No, it's just really so, it draws you in, and it's very straightforward, and you just speed along. And then the story is kind of like reading this book. It felt like watching like a blockbuster movie, like a blockbuster apocalypse movie with fantasy, and it just was so fun. You just like, I gotta keep going. So once I hit 50%, it only took me like 2 or 3 more days to read the rest, because I was just eating it up and having a really great time. There were no real surprises. It was not like mind-blowing or doing anything very new, but it was just fun. And you know, sometimes when you're reading something that's pretty familiar, like the story tropes and the conventions, like it's pretty familiar. Sometimes when you read a book that's kind of treading that same ground, you get a little frustrated and disappointed and bored. But this, instead of being frustrating, it just was really comforting, and kind of cozy, like a cozy blockbuster apocalypse movie. Does that make any sense? But that's how it felt. Yeah, and it was just so fun. And then the other book club book is Pavilion of Women by Pearl S. Buck. This is a literary classic. It was published in 1946, and it is set in China. The author, Pearl S. Buck, was American, but she was born and lived almost half of her life in China, until they had to leave. Her and her family, they were, she was part of a missionary family, and that's how she was born and raised there. So she knows a lot about China. It gave a lot of information and a feeling of really being there, and the details of Chinese society and that time in history, which is like before and maybe 1 or 2 years into World War II. So this is pre-communist China, like before and early into World War II. And this was a very transitional time, and you got to see the conflict between the generations in this large extended family household of a very wealthy landowning family. And all of those parts I really enjoyed. And it was the prose, her writing was wonderful to read. It was descriptive without being like overly done. And it was just so smooth and lovely writing. Those were the things that I really enjoyed about the book, but I really also had some frustrations. You're very much in the head of Madame Wu, the matriarch of the Wu clan, and part of this is her own spiritual journey, and supposedly it's a very profound spiritual and intellectual awakening that she has. But I just was not enjoying being in her head. And in the beginning, before she's supposed to have learned all these things and ascended to a better understanding and a spiritual awakening, she was just difficult, very controlling, very manipulative, and she just, all that she wanted, which was her freedom, which, okay, wanting your freedom is a good thing and a thing to want. She was feeling burdened and oppressed by all the duty that she had, and a big part of that was her duty to her husband. So in the beginning of the book, it begins with her announcing to him that she will no longer share her bed with him, that she is going to choose a young concubine to come into the household to please him, and this sets off a whole bunch of unintended consequences, and the whole household is kind of turned upside down by this. Nobody knows what to think, and that's kind of the beginning. And then she also invites a foreign priest, a Father Andre, to come and be the English tutor for her third son, because his wife is very modern thinking and fashionable, and she really values like foreign ideas and foreign interests, and learning foreign language to be able to interact with the wider world and be knowledgeable and modern. So Father Andre begins to teach English, and he spends time in the household doing that. And that also sets off some unintended consequences, and she begins to learn English and other things, other subjects like science and history and geography from him. He becomes Madame Wu's teacher as well. And because she's one of the few women, she already knew how to read, and most women at that time didn't, but she did. She is a very intelligent woman, but she's also so proud of all of her accomplishments. She is a very proud superior. She just like looks down and criticizes and kind of despises everyone else. They're below her. And in this spiritual awakening, the way I read it and how it was in her head to me, she still did not become any less superior. She just found different accomplishments to feel superior about. Now, instead of feeling superior about her reading or her family position, she was feeling so superior about her, oh, look, I did something kind. I am the kindest. I have grown. I have ascended. Oh, look, I have awakened to the meaning of love, and I am learning to love other people. Nobody knows how to love like I do. She just switches her areas of pride and just becomes intolerable in a different way. And she's still manipulative, only she thinks she's manipulating for better purposes now. Maybe not quite as selfish, but oh my goodness, I struggled with her, and I just could not see I think we're supposed to be impressed by her growth and learn spiritual lessons along with her. But I just felt like all of that was still very just shallow and simple. It was not inspiring or deep at all to me. I would say if you would like to read it for a kind of historic portrait of that time in Chinese history and and the life it describes in really great like detail, and you feel the living, breathing day to day of a large household and the people in it. And so but I don't recommend it for like deep spiritual philosophy. Let's see. I'm gonna look at my notes, see where I am, if I've left any of the books out. Yes, so I finished a bunch of what I was reading. I had put a couple of things on pause, and now I am ready to pick back up Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones, which is a delightful middle grade fantasy, and it has been adapted to a beautiful movie by Studio Ghibli of the same name, Howl's Moving Castle. The book has so much more to the story, because in a movie you can only include so much, and they did a great job adapting. I'm not knocking how they adapted it, because I think they did a great job, but I really recommend, if you love the movie, there's even more great stuff and even more to enjoy in the book. And I think any fan of the movie is going to love this book. And anyone who really enjoys a good middle grade fantasy, I think this is a classic, and it's so, so good. I love the characters. The characters are the best. Howl is such a little drama queen. He throws tantrums and he's kind of silly. And Sophie is just so endearing and such a wonderful character. And yeah, and the Witch of the Waste is the villain, and she is a great villain, and all of it. I am so excited I actually have read about 10 pages earlier today, so I have picked it up and read just a little bit to start back into it. And I am ready to also pick up The Tiger Flu by Larissa Lai again. Really, really interested to see how this goes. It is another pandemic story, but this is very different than Nora Roberts' fantasy pandemic. This is not the same kind of story at all, even though they share a pandemic theme. This is much more literary in style, and it is not straightforward. The prose is really nice to read, but it just kind of throws you in. It does not explain much. It just takes you for a ride, and you put things together as best you can, and just yeah and in this book, the tiger flu, that's the disease, it especially targets men a lot harder. It is very, very highly lethal to men, and it spreads very easily. to men, but women are a little bit more resistant to getting it. And the women who do get it, it is not, it's not as fatal, it's not as severe for women. So there are not a lot of men around anymore, and the men that are around are either sick and dying, or they haven't gotten sick yet and they're just like staying in their room in their house, like trying to not get sick. So yeah, so there are rings, the cover, there are quarantine rings in different society. There are different communities and they're in these like quarantine rings, and one of the communities is an exiled group of women who were genetically engineered by like corporate scientists. For what purpose, I am not sure. It might be related to the pandemic. Maybe they were looking for cures or something to help. But after they were created, they've been exiled. So these exiled women that were genetically engineered, some of them are doublers, and they go through a process of parthenogenesis, which is they spontaneously in their bodies clone themselves, but they give birth, and the children, because it's usually multiples, they call it a litter, and the daughters are clones, genetically identical to their mother. So some of the women are doublers, and some of those women are starfish, which means that they can regenerate parts of their body. So if a limb is cut off, or if an organ is removed, they grow that part back. And they are kind of harvested to help keep other women, especially the leaders in their community, alive longer. I am not super far into it, only about like 30%. But it feels like it's getting a turning point. I think two of the characters from two of the communities are going to have to meet together and then go and do something. So we're leading up to that, and so I am ready to go back to that. And yeah, so those are the books, and I think that that's everything. I don't have anything more that I want to talk about. I hope that you've had a good couple of weeks. I hope that wherever you are well, and all of your family and all of your loved ones are well and safe, and take care. See you next time. Bye-bye.